This is professional, you know. Okay.
Are there sponsors?
This is how it works. Welcome, everyone, to The Impact, a sustainable CT podcast for your edification, your enlightenment, and your entertainment, too. I'm Jim Hunt, Communications Manager at Sustainable CT, so if you're looking for someone to blame for this podcast, well, you can blame me. But remember, this is never a one-way conversation. We always want to hear from you for our edification and enlightenment. Drop us a note, won't you, to info@sustainablect.org. The Impact is brought to you in part by our good friends, the Common Sense Fund. The Common Sense Fund supports environmental change through education, policy initiatives, promotion of carbon-free energy sources, and stewardship of our natural resources. The fund promotes action both on the environment and the arts that is practical, creative, and addresses social needs. We are so glad they do. Remember, Sustainable CT is independently funded. We don't receive support from any level of government or from a university, not even from a magical rainbow unicorn money tree. No, sir. But you can be a Sustainable CT sponsor. Find out how at sustainablect.org. Today, it is my infinite pleasure to be chatting with Emily Basham, Senior Manager of Partnership Development at the Connecticut Green Bank. Emily manages the community campaigns for the Solar for All and the Solar Municipal Assistance programs supporting Connecticut's towns and cities. She's led the Green Bank's participation in the SolSmart program, offering technical assistance to streamline local solar permitting processes in the state. Prior to joining the Green Bank, Emily's work focused on member and voter engagement through nonprofits such as the League of Conservation Voters. We love the League of Conservation Voters, and various political campaigns. Emily was a lot of fun to talk with and very informative, too. This was a Zoom conversation we recorded on November 29th, 2022. Let's listen. Emily, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. So you received your bachelor's in environmental science and political science from the University of Michigan. Go Blue!
Go Blue.
Go Blue. Are you originally from the Pleasant Peninsula state?
I am not from Michigan. I've actually never heard it called the Pleasant Peninsula State, but I like that.
The motto on the state seal is "Look to the north and view the Pleasant Peninsula," or some damn thing like that. That's what it says. Anyway, all right. So you're not originally from Michigan, but you spent some formative years there.
Yes, I went to college there. Go Blue! We actually just had a very notable football win last Saturday against our rivals at Ohio State, and we won by a lot. I'm feeling my Wolverine power today.
Anytime you can beat Ohio State is a good day, right?
I'm glad you agree. I'm glad you agree. Yeah, but I'm originally from Nebraska. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska.
Holy moly!
Where I was born and raised. Yeah.
Okay. You still have family there? You go back occasionally?
Yes, the entire Basham clan is in Omaha and the surrounding area.
Well, yeah. I'm not asking these for idle curiosity, although it is fascinating. I don't know. I'm wondering how our Connecticut energy landscape, differs from that of Michigan or other states that you might be also familiar with. And are there any lessons that we can learn from some of the experience you have had elsewhere?
Yeah, that's interesting because I think the states are really, they always say the states are the laboratories for, what sort of initiatives or efforts we try to do, federally or at the national level. And in my work, I definitely believe that the states are really sort of the level to do clean energy work and many other things. So I think that's an interesting question that state by state, having grown up in Nebraska and then lived in Michigan and been in Connecticut for some time now, the three states are interesting because they all three have, pretty solid winters. So having to deliver power, the reliability over the winter, that's a challenge in the utility world. And it also can make it challenging to incorporate renewables into that. So I think all three states have that challenge, but I'm pretty biased when it comes to the landscape that sort of has the most going for it, and that being Connecticut. And maybe it's because my professional work has been here in Connecticut, and so I'm more familiar with it. But like the state landscapes, I think are like a combination of like your leadership that you have, the legislature, your state leadership, and the sort of, initiatives that they pass. And then, agencies and regulatory bodies that try to implement those things. And then all the way down to like, the communities like Sustainable CT and towns that are trying to make projects a reality. And I think Connecticut has all three of those things really working well together, but both Nebraska, Michigan, and Connecticut have pretty ambitious like clean energy goals.
Nebraska is a pretty red state, yeah? I mean, do they have anything comparable to what? Yeah.
They are a very red state, and they also are actually the only state that is served like solely by publicly owned utilities.
Okay.
Which is interesting because in Connecticut, where we have investor owned utilities, which just means sort of larger, privately owned, responsible to shareholders, but they can, recruit more talent in their staff and maybe adopt, different technologies and programs, a little more agile. They're across, state territories and regulated by the Public Utility Regulatory Authority. But in Nebraska, because all three of the utilities there are publicly owned, they're like more cautious to adopt new technologies. So they've been really slow to integrate renewables into their power mix. So as you might suspect, in Nebraska, they have like majority of their power is from coal.
Yeah.
But they've more recently adopted like a net zero carbon emissions target by 2050, which is only because they've started to see some of the benefits of wind power integrating into their utility mix. So,
that's fascinating. Can I ask you, because you were there, you were at the CPES conference, right? And we were having that panel discussion, and I had, I guess, kind of a darker view that the rest of the country, forget about the rest of the world, but the rest of the country didn't necessarily share our zeal for the green economy. And I recall that, I was told, no, it's a green economy the world round, and if you're not, you're crazy. So I'm still not convinced by that. I think there are places in this country that are really fighting the idea of a green economy. But you would say that Nebraska, for example, is actually coming around to the notion that if it's not green, then it ain't gonna fly.
I think that I would characterize it as they're not going to sort of set ambitious targets and sort of work towards the ethos of integrating green into their energy mix. They're going to look at their resources and see what outcomes they get from wind and integrate it slowly. So they have this. It's very recently, it might be last year, that they put this target out there, but they've got to make good on it, right? It's just a goal. And it is a state that is deeply entrenched in ethanol. We're the second largest
it's corn and coal. I mean,
producer of fuel ethanol, right behind Iowa. So that sort of, people's familiarity with that resource and connection to it, and means that there's going to have to be, a significant pivot to be able to actually integrate renewables. But their renewable resources are different from ours. Like, they have great wind potential, which has a higher capacity factor than solar, meaning it's more kind of power producing. So they have a goal, but they have to make good on it. They have to actually do the projects to hit it. And it may not be something that is like lauded by politicians. It might just be something that kind of happens.
Yeah, don't want to say it out loud too much. because they don't want to look.
Yeah, I hope if anyone who listens to this from Nebraska wants to challenge me on it, I appreciate it. Let's stir it up in Nebraska and put them back on their heels. But yeah, I would say I was surprised to learn of the goal, and I think there's a lot to do to make it happen. But I think it will be on large scale projects. I don't think it will be something that the citizenry will participate in like we see in Connecticut. We see houses upon houses of solar panels. We've got robust programs.
Yeah.
Everybody, too many programs sometimes. People are like, what do I do? I heard about this. I heard about that. What do I start with? So it's sort of a different approach.
Yeah. How did you get involved with Connecticut Green Bank?
So I got involved with Connecticut Green Bank when they hired me 7 years ago.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I actually learned about the Connecticut Green Bank when I was living in DC. I was a previous life working in politics. I was working for a political consulting firm, and I got really burnt out. And oddly,
can't imagine.
Sustainability and clean energy was like more of an opportunistic space. But that's what I went to school for, and I wanted to get back to that. So I think like many people, many working professionals now, there are a lot of different sort of programs and courses and things like that you can take instead of having to quit work, go back to school. There's a lot of different hybrid resources out there. So I did a program called the Clean Energy Leadership Institute, which really fast-tracked me academically, professionally to like a full deep dive into clean energy. And in that coursework, we learned about the Connecticut Green Bank because it's the first full-scale green bank in the country. So that's what I learned about them. And when I wanted to make the jump career-wise, I applied to the Connecticut Green Bank and started there 7 years ago as an intern.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of opportunity to work your way up at the Green Bank. And I've also worked on a lot of different programs and almost every team that we have. So it's been awesome.
You have worked with a lot of stuff, especially SolSmart. Yeah.
The SolSmart program. Yeah, I think we integrated that with Sustainable CT as well.
Yeah. Well, yes, you did for sure. But let's go back I want to try to be a little bit linear here in my thought process. I bounce on. How do you think that the municipalities are evolving with that energy landscape that we're talking about? Are they using the Green Bank products? What are they interested in? What help do they need that you provide in the Green Bank?
I think municipalities are very key stakeholder in the clean energy landscape in Connecticut. I'm sure you agree it's Sustainable CT, but it's sort of following that same line. If the states are like a laboratory for the nation, then cities are like an even finer point to that. And I think they have been really active in adopting clean energy technologies like themselves, and also encouraging the various citizens or businesses within the towns to take a look at it. Especially with COVID, there's been a lot of focus on bringing sort of clean air or better ventilation to schools and town buildings as they're, upgrading the town's properties. And I think that we're even seeing towns making stronger commitments to clean energy. So even West Hartford, I think last year committed to 100% clean energy, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And they will have to use, all the tools in their toolbox to hit that. But towns are really leading. And I think it's great to see. And we're seeing them being more active in our Green Bank programs too. They've always been a partner for us. And maybe it's because I'm working with towns and the programs that I run. There really are some great champions in towns that are, either pressing their town leadership to make commitments, take actions, be the lead by example. We're seeing them just a lot of project volume at the town level. So it's really great to see.
Well, let's talk about sustainable CT for a minute, because why not? It's just, how awesome are we to work with sustainable CT? What value do we bring, if any? What do we add to the Green Bank's work? I mean, and for that matter, what do you think we could do better? What's the reason?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of sustainable CT.
Yeah, I noticed that. That's true. You are.
Which, I wore my sustainable CT t-shirt yesterday, and I'm drinking out of my sustainable CT water bottle today.
That's great. I don't. I have an LL Bean, but it says sustainability on it. If you write sustainability on something, it means that it is. I get it.
Yeah. It's made from bamboo.
So where do we come? Where do we come into play with what Green Bank's trying to accomplish?
I think sustainable CT has been sort of the missing piece that towns needed. You guys started in 2018. So in the last 4 years, I think that, Connecticut's had like a long history of towns and sort of citizen activists coming together, organizing to hold municipal leaders' feet to the fire and really keep progress moving on clean energy. Really, hats off to all the volunteers and task forces in towns that weren't waiting for a sustainable CT to come around to do things in their towns. But what sustainable CT adds is really creating a community of individuals who are working on these things and helping to set a framework of what actions we are all collectively doing to move the state forward and reach the goals that we have to confront climate change. And I think that's really helpful because it can get so daunting working on all the different things that we're supposed to do and what's the right way. There's constantly new, technologies coming out and initiatives and resources. It's like sustainable CT really captures that and keeps everybody sort of working in the same framework towards that sustainability. And there's a lot of different programs out there for towns to participate in and get certified by or recognized by. But I think what makes sustainable CT really different, earns a lot of respect from me, is that the program is, as you guys say, it's by towns for towns. So it's really integrating the feedback of the people who are doing it, which is what you need to have, that two-way communication, which is something we try to emulate at the Green Bank, is what's working. We put our programs out there. We think we're filling gaps, but we need that feedback to know if we are, how we can do it better. Yeah,
it's one thing is, what do you want? How can we help you? As opposed to, here's what you need, some kind of lecturing process or finger wagging. Here's what you must do. Listen to us tell you what to do. Rather, it's that two-way communication. How can we help you achieve what we all want to achieve? And if we're providing standards and a roadmap that's common to towns, but also unique to small towns versus large, et cetera, it gives the towns an ability to achieve, to see that they're achieving over time and really making a difference. So that's, I think, one of the things we have in common with the Green Bank, and I'm very happy we're able to work together like that. You did some work in CPACE too?
Yeah, I help support the CPACE program, and I've worked with Sustainable CT to include the program as an action in the Sustainable CT menu of actions. Yeah.
That's why I wanted to ask you, because you're like the expert to me in this, because I'm the communications guy. There's a lot I don't know. I will turn to my colleagues who are the nuts and bolts of all of this stuff to make it work with towns. And what I hear from a lot of the people I talk to, the laymen out there, the voluntary sustainable committee members and the town staff, for that matter, have no idea what CPACE is or how it works. And if you could explain in very simple terms how it works and how businesses and nonprofits benefit and how municipal government benefits,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that. I'll take it as creative plagiarism and use what you tell me so I can go out and explain it myself. All
Yeah,
right.
I'd be happy to explain CPACE. I know that there's sort of a sea of programs out there, and it doesn't help that, it's an acronym that
They're all acronyms, right?
doesn't give you any clues with the letters, but it's a great program. It's a really innovative way for commercial properties to pay for clean energy projects.
Mm-hmm.
So it stands for Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. I think before sort of explaining like how it works and how everyone can benefit, an important sort of precursor is that in order for us all to hit the goals that we want to hit in the state and help us confront climate change, we've all got to like do what we can in our power to, do these clean energy projects. But the business community, it has to make sense. It has to make sense for properties to do these projects. And there are a lot of benefits to the projects. But a challenge is that how do you pay for them? And typical, financing options out there weren't necessarily designed for clean energy type of projects. Right. So this is a financing option that was created specifically to pay for clean energy upgrades. And the way that it does that is that the CPACE program offers 100% financing for a project, and it has very competitive terms, and it can be long term. So it can go all the way up to 25 years, which in the loan world is pretty long.
Where does the money come from?
The money comes from the Connecticut Green Bank. We have our financing programs, and those financing programs are capitalized by a mixture of public funds and private funds. Okay. And that is really sort of the formula for the Green Bank writ large. So we get a small portion of ratepayer dollars, and we leverage that money. We use that money to attract private investors, to create these funds that help us, that pay for our financing products. Our leverage ratio is very efficient. So for every dollar of public funding we receive, we're bringing in $7 of private capital.
Wow.
To capitalize our programs. The CPACE program is available for any type of commercial property. So it's not just sort of like the retail spaces or office buildings or industrial buildings that people think of, but it's also for nonprofits, houses of worship, anything that's like not residential.
Right.
So who's eligible is very broad. What you can pay for is very broad. It's anything that can impact your energy bills. So it can be, solar, it can be better HVAC, better windows, insulation, anything that helps improve the energy efficiency of a property. And the way that the financing mechanism works is that it's an assessment that's placed on the property. So it's similar to like a water assessment or, your tax assessments. It's repaid in the same way, and it's attached to the property. Okay. So if someone sells their property, that assessment gets transferred to the new owner. So if someone's thinking about, I've got a church or I've got a business, I want to do these projects that have a longer payback period, but I might sell in 10 years or 7 years, how is that going to make sense? That assessment can be transferred to that heating system is going to stay with the property. So is the assessment. And then one final thing I'll say about CPACE, which really makes it attractive, is a safeguard that's in place legislatively with the program, is that the projects that we finance with CPACE have to pass a savings to investment ratio. So the savings that will come from the energy measures has to be greater than the cost of the project.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so that's part of the evaluation when we're looking at a project are the HVAC system and the lighting and all the different measures that this property wants to do. The savings that are going to come from it, is it greater than the investment for the project? So,
and for municipalities, especially those that might be reticent to, on moral grounds or existential grounds or whatever political reason to follow this a green program, you can get them on the money. Say, look, this will save you money.
It will, yes, it will save money. The CPACE program, I will clarify, is not available for municipal properties. We work with municipalities because they have to sort of allow CPACE to exist in their town.
Yeah.
But because CPACE is an assessment on the property and it's paid back sort of as a tax, municipalities don't pay that, so they can't participate as sort of, we can't lend to them through the CPACE program, but we work with them, which is why this is an action in the Sustainable CT program.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask you. You're going right into my next question, which is how can a town then make that connection for me then. If a town can't take part directly in CPACE, how does a town use CPACE projects for municipal certification? Where does that tie in from?
Yeah. So the action is really for towns to help socialize that the CPACE program exists for the commercial properties in town.
Okay.
And, when we work with a town that reaches out and they're like, we want to do this action, can we partner with you to spread the word? We're really looking at towns who want to create a relationship with the business communities. And I think that sort of relationship looks different in every single town. Some towns have a chamber of commerce, some towns have, smaller towns, they're very connected with the businesses that are in their town or the property owners that are in their town, and they want to be a resource to them. And this is a great way to do that, is to reach out to, your houses of worship, nonprofit centers, office spaces, and say, look, we know of this program. You should look into this program. This is a way to reduce your overhead costs, have a more comfortable property, and pay for it. And you should look into this. And I think that because the Connecticut Green Bank administers this program and we have that savings to investment kind of safeguard in there, it makes towns excited to be able to share the program as a resource for towns. And it can be sort of either just another sort of PSA that they're giving to the community, or it can really start that conversation and be a reason for towns, to know, or for businesses to know, like, my town, is looking out for me and is providing me with valuable resources that actually help me. So I think that the program can be really helpful if towns can keep that in mind. They've got a big menu, they got a lot of actions to do. They want to know, how can we just connect with business owners and tell them about the CPACE program. But I think it's nice to take a step back and think about when we've achieved all of the bronze, silvers, and golds of sustainable CT, or if somebody else starts working on sustainability efforts in my town, what sort of relationship do we want to have exist here between the town and the churches and nonprofits and businesses that are here? How do we bring them into this movement and not have it just be stuck at City Hall of what we're working?
Okay. Let's take a break a moment. We'll come right back. We're talking with Emily Basham from the Connecticut Green Bank. We'll return to our program in just a moment. You've been listening to The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. Don't forget, you can join the Sustainable CT Coffee Hour for virtual, informal discussions on most third Fridays of each month. We share program updates and resources, explore your questions, and strengthen the network of Sustainable CT champions. These sessions are free is good, and open to all. Look for details on our training and events calendar at, you guessed it, sustainableCT.com. And if you're not yet a subscriber to Actions and Impact, the Sustainable CT newsletter, you could be missing out on some very important information to you, to your organization, and to your town. Accept no substitutes. Do yourself a favor and subscribe today. And you can do that where? At sustainablect.org, of course. I wanted to follow the money a little bit more. And of course, it's the holiday season. So what better time to follow the money? Let's listen. All right, we're back with Emily Basham from the Connecticut Green Bank. And I want to circle back just for a moment because we went through it very briefly about funding, where money comes from. And the Green Bank has a program relatively new, I think, isn't it, called Green Bonds? What's that all about? What are the green bonds about? And I was just wondering, who buys them? Do municipal governments buy green bonds? How does it work?
Yeah, a municipality can buy they're called Green Liberty bonds, and they're modeled off of war bonds that were sold in World War II. But it's really a way for the Green Bank to more efficiently and effectively provide capital to deploy more clean energy projects by issuing these bonds. And similarly, it's a way for everyday citizens to invest in these projects and have, a piece of ownership. It's really democratizing investment in this space. So the capital that we need for clean energy projects at the scale that we need to deploy clean energy, it's a lot. And typically we've had, Wall Street investors that are helping to, we're attracting them into this space, which is really good. That's what the Green Bank is supposed to do. We're de-risking this green economy, and we're bringing in Wall Street investors. But we also want to create opportunities for people like you and me who want to have these investment opportunities and participate in the green economy in the same way. So we have the Green Liberty bonds, and those are offered in $1,000 minimums, and it's offered to sort of the retail and institutional investors through brokerage firms. Right. So Green Bank will periodically issue a bond, and for that period, and a retail or institutional investor would learn about that specific bond. Each one is going to go to finance a certain set of projects or programs that we have. And so they're going to be offering their own specific, security and maturity date and credit rating. And they're all third-party certified as green. And then once you learn about the bond, you open a brokerage account. If, municipality already has, they
usually do, right?
Brokerage account. And so they can just inquire about purchasing along with some of the other bonds they may participate in.
And these work just like regular bonds in which you're talking about their standard term, and there's a guaranteed rate of return at some point down the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yep. And that's how the Green Liberty bonds work. Those are, through a brokerage account. If you don't have a brokerage account, you can learn about how to open one. We have resources for that. But we also have the Green Liberty notes. And the notes are even smaller denominations.
Okay.
The Green Liberty notes, you don't have to have a brokerage account. This was created as like a sort of a companion investment opportunity, but really for more of the citizenry.
All right.
So
get some skin in the game. Yeah.
Yeah. So Green Liberty notes, they have a 1-year maturity. They are a minimum of $100. And they're really easy to purchase online through our online platform without a broker.
And they make great Christmas gifts.
They make great Christmas gifts.
It is our holiday show.
Yeah.
So
that's so true.
Let's just put it out there. Yeah.
Yes.
They make great Christmas gifts. I like it. I got me thinking. I know a couple of people who could probably use one of them.
I have passed around the opportunity to my family members who have been excited to participate. So it really is created to bring these opportunities to Connecticut, but the green bond and notes opportunities are opened up worldwide. So we have people investing across the globe, across the nation in green projects here in Connecticut. Wow. So it's been really successful, actually. We've had, I think for the notes, we had 4 issuances. So they're time sensitive. Once we announce an issuance, there's a certain period that you can buy the notes or bonds. So this year we had 4, and I think we're expecting to have 4 in 2023. And the notes, which is the smaller denominations, this last issuance we had raised $800,000.
No way, really?
Yeah, it's pretty successful. We've had, I think most of the notes that were issued were in 1,000 or smaller denominations. So this isn't like 10 people who came in, and got large denominations. These really are people like you and me and the rest of the Basham family buying Green Liberty notes to capitalize our projects. And the Green Liberty bonds, which are the higher denomination, 1,000, I think we've raised over $40 million in Liberty bonds for our projects. So it really is expanding who's participating in these investments. So
everybody, cool. Everybody wants to have a green portfolio, at least some portion of their portfolio to be green is an overused term, but something that isn't ExxonMobil, that has some purpose behind it. I think it's fantastic. It sounds wonderful. Let's stick with the money angle just for a second. Where are real estate statistics on changes in the valuation for energy upgrades? And as people are becoming more knowledgeable about sustainability, does investment equal or exceed the increase in these valuations? I mean, have you seen that in communities in Connecticut?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot more work that can be done to capture the benefits of doing efficiency work on properties for the purposes of like selling properties. And so in the real estate world, we've done a lot of collaboration in the past with the real estate industry in Connecticut to help provide resources that are really as simple as creating a form for real estate agents to capture just the basic information about a solar system that is installed in a house so that they can properly talk about what has been installed at a home during a sale. But there have been some numbers that have been studied recently. I think last year, the National Association of Realtors released a study that said that solar panels can boost home value by 50%, which I think is pretty high. I think that's a generous number. And I know that there's other resources out there, like Freddie Mac and Energy Star, that have done their own studies that show houses that are energy efficient homes can get a 3 to 5% premium on their home sale values.
That sounds a lot more reasonable. That
sounds a lot more reasonable. I think, and there's some national labs that have done research about the value of that, a solar system that has been owned. So the house, the homeowners purchased it, that does add value. And like a leased system doesn't add value because those lease payments would continue on to the new owner. So they can't be incorporated into the value of the sale. But I think there's a lot of work that can be done to help like articulate and translate during the sale process. Mm-hmm. The value. And we know that, that energy efficient features are one of the top must-haves for home buyers in the market.
And we do it here too. I mean, even on a lease system, you've at least got an investment in the physical plant. The mechanical systems are in the building. That's a big front cost. So even in a lease system, you're adding value to the property, presumably in some way. I mean, it's like, as a homeowner myself, I'm sitting here. I'm not going to do anything to my house that is going to take value, right? Whatever I do, I want to try. I'm not always successful, but everything I do to the house, I want to try to increase its value. So if I'm going to put $20,000 into a rooftop solar system and integrated with my electrical and everything else, it's got to be able to pay for itself over time. It's got to be able to add value to the house for resale. And I suppose it's true that if it is a lease system, there's less value inherently in that. And yet all the mechanics exist for the next buyer. That's something they don't have to worry about. So there's something to it. And
the big feature of having a reduction in your energy bills.
Well,
that's why people are doing it.
Yeah,
and
when
I think
diesel is $6 a gallon, that's pretty important. Yeah.
That's another sort of factor that I think can be better integrated into some of the larger platforms like Zillow and Realtor.com. They show you your estimated mortgage payments for a property or your estimated taxes, or they show those sorts of things. And I would love to see sort of the information transparency around like your estimated energy costs.
They don't do that yet? I haven't looked. I don't know. But you don't know if they don't do that?
I don't think so. I think that's harder to get the data in the back end to sort of populate those sort of estimates, because it really is based on how who's living in the home and how much their personal preferences of, the temperature and et cetera. But I would love to see that. And I think with how competitive the home buying market has been, people have become very savvy in what they're looking for, what they can give on, what they have to have. And people are looking at, all right, I got to have a down payment. Then I have this as a mortgage payment. But what are my monthly costs going to look like? And you've got to be thinking about your energy costs, especially as we see those utility rates going up. So,
I mean, if somebody had told me when I bought this house 20 years ago that heating oil was going to be $6 a gallon, I'd have like had I don't know, that would have made me make different choices, given what, and especially over 20 years time, I could have changed the system radically in 20 years and have it pay for itself. We don't have a lot of time left, and you're a smart person. So I want to I want to go like do a little deeper dive into some other stuff here. Like, given the news about COP27, and they made, just a little broader philosophical point of view from you. So they made some significant headway in establishing a loss and damage fund, which is at least in principle, but they failed to specifically call out fossil fuels as a major hindrance to climate reclamation, which I thought was like, why are you here if not to do that? But then when you realize, first of all, they're having this in Sharm el-Sheikh, and the fossil fuel industry was so heavily represented at these conferences, it's almost like we got to bar them at the door. Anyway, so they've had a mixed bag result from COP27, and I wonder how you see the climate future, as it affects us in small town and in Connecticut, granted, but just in even larger picture too. And what keeps you hopeful about the future? Is there something that you can hang your hat on and say, okay, things are getting better, and I can see a future that if we keep it up, we're going to get where we want to go? What's your view?
Yeah, I think it's important, like you said, to pull out the wins that you get from things like COP27, which is such an important platform to have global leaders coming together, and what language they use, what sort of agreements they're willing to come together on, and then like what's missing. And I agree with you. It was really a disappointment to not have that language that we thought we were going to see in COP that was supposed to be about implementation, really like building on targets, peaking carbon emissions by a certain date, or coming up with commitments to, peak those emissions, and committing to phasing out fossil fuel. That was, I think, a lot of disappointment, even from delegates, I think was shared, and I share that as well. But I think we have to hang on to sort of the progress that we saw there. And that's sort of like what I feel is helpful for me in my everyday work, is to see the progress that we're making, and celebrate the milestones that we do hit. But I'm a people person. So when it comes to feeling hopeful about things, like I just think about the people in my life, the people that are sort of in my referent group and the work that they're doing. And that makes me feel like I'm on the right track, that we're on the right track. And I think a lot of people are in my world are very influential to me in staying motivated in this space. So I think like the champions in towns that we talked about, people who take time out of their lives to be on, these voluntary task forces and commissions, to have hard conversations in their, city council meetings or with their leadership or with their neighbors, to join these initiatives and do the projects. Like that's really, I have a lot of respect for people who take time out of their lives to do that. And I also have a lot of respect for the people I work with at the Green Bank. There's a reason why I've been there for 7 years, which as a millennial, I'm like, 7 years? That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I really work with good people, and they're extremely talented. And they're also people who have chosen to like prioritize confronting climate change in their professional lives. So it's a group I'm happy to be amongst and work with every day. And I also think about like young people. I think the young people I've encountered in the fellows program at Sustainable CT, I have a sister who is 15, and it's wild just being 15 in America in 2022. And there's a lot of things I could say about that. But for her, she's sort of grown up with just a basic sort of truth about life, is that climate change is horrible. It's real. It's human caused. It's going to be a big challenge. And that's something that I learned in college. I had to sort of stumble upon, and I felt like I just uncovered like a ticking nuclear bomb. And I was like,
it was all news to us. Right. Whoa.
What are we doing? So that brings me hope that young people sort of skip that whole step, that we have such passionate and capable people behind us to carry on the torch. And it also motivates me because, we say like the world that we pass on. And for some people that can be like way too far away. It can be a little too existential to feel urgent. But when you have like, family members or children, it becomes super important. So that helps create some hope and some motivation.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that same way. That was a very interesting observation you made to us, to me as well, certainly to me and to you. We learned about this. Like, we weren't born with this whole concept being made central to our lives the way my kids have been born with this concept of climate change, what we need to do, all the, how this is happening, and we need to be part of the solution and not the problem. I had to learn that, when I was already a fully formed human being and didn't know any better and, had to be educated. So it's a very different generational thing. It's true. I do get down occasionally wondering, are the small things that we're doing and we're trying to do really having enough of an effect to make it a difference? And then, of course, I talk to people that I work with, same kind of idea, where they're really working hard. People are really doing what they need to do, and their hearts are in it and their minds are in it. And I got to take my hat off to them. It's going to be better if people keep working hard. That's all I keep telling myself. Well, Ms. Basham of the Connecticut Green Bank, sadly, we are out of time for today, Emily. So time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? You see, it just zoomed right by.
It does. I wish I could spend my lunch hour like this more often.
There you go. And it was a lot of fun for me too. So thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure. And I hope we have a chance to do it again sometime soon.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You are welcome. We hope you've enjoyed today's edition of The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. This program is recorded, produced, and copyrighted, by Sustainable CT. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, the Common Sense Fund. Thanks again to Emily Basham of Connecticut Green Bank for joining us and for keeping it real. Thanks to everyone for taking local actions that have a statewide impact.